look forward to hearing from our panelists and what you have to say, given that you are the future. You are the very bright future that the Assemblymember is aspiring for tomorrow. We have an incredible panel of speakers today who are all excited to share key insights with you on their journey, and maybe a couple of helpful tips for you to work on as you go down your own paths. The Assemblymember wants you to know, no matter what hurdles you face, we want to empower you with the important resources and knowledge so that nothing will prevent you from achieving your dreams. He understands how massive of a barrier financial obstacles can be for you dream seekers. So the Assemblymember wants to highlight a couple of achievements made at the state level last year, which include his winning of an annual $5.4 million increase from the state awarded Cal grants. That's financial aid that does not need to be paid back. Give it up if you don't want to pay back $5.4 million to the state for your education. He's also helped with securing $55 million for CSU Stanislaus Stockton campus to support enrollment growth and campus renovations without hiking tuition fees. Please give it up for that. As many of you already know, California also now guarantees free community college for 2 years for full-time students to help them find their path toward an undergraduate degree, and I hope you all take advantage of that. Please give it up for that. The Assemblymember in his office is constantly working towards improving the well-being of our students in a number of ways, such as ensuring that you have better access to food, housing, and transportation. And we know during COVID, living in a COVID-impacted environment, how critical those resources are. It's important to be aware of these resources as they may play an important role in helping you achieve your highest goals. Financial aid, on top of all of this, is an important tool, which is why high school seniors will now have to either fill out an application for the FAFSA or the California Dream application, or complete a waiver opting out of these options. In just a moment, we're going to hear from 3 key influencers from our very own community: Nicole Potter, former state Assemblymember; Carol Navarez, commissioner at West Coast Conference; and from Assemblymember Villapudua's office, Jessica Rocha, who serves as his legislative assistant. They all have an incredible journey that they're excited to share with you and can answer any questions you may have about your own. But before we hear from these amazing women, I would like to welcome and introduce another special guest. I'm looking around and I don't see him yet. Our San Joaquin County Superintendent of Schools. Oh, I told you I was getting old. He's right there. Dr. Troy Brown. Appreciate you.
Good morning, everyone. This is wonderful to see you, and I really enjoy getting around and individually talk to you. A few of you just before we got started. We know we have a few more trickling in right now. This is a wonderful opportunity and experience, not only for each of you, but for the adults in the room as well. A lot of us probably have a soft spot for our young women, and I have 2 daughters of my own, and watching them, they're at this age, we're trying to navigate the world and things like that, and so I think meetings like this are really important, and we're excited to have you here. We're grateful to be able to host this at the County Office of Education. So my name is Troy Brown. I'm the County Superintendent of Schools. We're excited to have you. As the Superintendent of Schools, one of my main priorities is ensuring that the San Joaquin County students find fulfilling careers as they transition into adulthood. whether through the traditional college route or another path, such as apprenticeship training. So, an assembly member of Villapudua, who we're missing today, but we're glad he set this up, when his office reached out to us and asked us to host, we thought, absolutely, we would love to host this event. And what an amazing opportunity for students in San Joaquin County. So first, please, if you'll give me a round of applause, not only for Assemblymember Villapudua and his office, but also Janine Kaislin and her staff from the County Office of Education that really helped put this together. Now, I'd like to ask everyone here a couple of questions, and you can answer with a yes or just a show of hand. Have you ever been asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Anybody get that question? Yes. My daughter's a senior right now at Venture, and that question is driving her crazy. Probably some of you, same thing. How many of you have had a reply to that question other than, I don't know yet? A few of you, okay? My daughter's in the, I don't know yet, answer still. For some of us, we have no clue. Even when we get older, we still don't know. Others, we know the answer to the question at a young age. You might say doctor, teacher, dentist, electrician, farmer, educator, positions that maybe we're familiar with. The adults in our lives exposed us to those careers when they use those services maybe. Or maybe we've seen actors in those careers on TV or in movies. Or maybe our parents and grandparents work in those professions and we want to follow in their footsteps. But have you ever wondered what other careers might be out there you've never even considered? For example, an assembly member or superintendent of schools. I encourage you to begin thinking outside the box when exploring your career options. Being here today is a great step, right? There are so many careers and various pathways to get those careers, so please don't limit yourself. Think big. While you're thinking about various careers, I want to challenge you. Think about non-traditional careers. Non-traditional careers are occupations where the workforce consists of less than 25% of one gender. For example, you may find that more coders, firefighters, welders, and electricians are male. And you may find that more teachers, nurses, and paralegals are female. However, just because an occupation is known to be predominantly one gender does not mean that it must remain that way. We can change that. We can break down gender stereotypes about aptitudes and careers, because the fact is that no matter your gender, you can work in any field you choose. I believe that if there are fewer people of your gender in that dream career, actually the more they need you, your talents, your skills, and your perspective. So please don't limit yourself, because you might miss out on fulfilling career opportunities that you may love. And you deserve to have access to any high-wage, high-demand occupation you choose to pursue. Here at the SJCOE, we have many programs for high school students and young adults who are on the trajectory to college and careers, and I just want to highlight a few. For example, our Apprenticeship Reaching Career Horizons program, where high school students can earn college credit while receiving on-the-job training in paid positions at registered apprenticeships while still attending high school. Our Teach Academy, our newest teacher education and early college high program at Venture Academy Family of Schools. In Teach Academy, students starting in the 9th grade are working to earn a free associate degree in elementary education from Delta College by the time they graduate high school, as well as an affordable pathway to complete their bachelor's degree at Humphreys University and to get their teaching credential through our Teachers College of San Joaquin. At our Greater Valley Conservation Corps, 18 to 25-year-olds build their resumes while making the San Joaquin region a cleaner and greener place through hands-on recycling, beautification, and natural resource projects. And then they're hired by local businesses. Our Code Stack Academy, the first computer programming academy for adults in San Joaquin County, is affordable, immersive, and accelerated. and is developing software engineers who are industry ready to meet the demand of local employers. And again, that's one of those careers where often dominated by males. And so some wonderful opportunities for our females to jump into that field. Plus, we have other unique programs like Discovery Challenge Academy, where students reclaim credits to get back on track to graduate. We have Building a Futures Academy, where students 18 to 24 years of age in our Youth Build program work towards their high school diploma while learning about the construction trades and hands-on projects. There's also Work Start Yes, which helps 16 to 24-year-olds explore career options, gain work experience, and secure and maintain employment. And we offer annual activities, and maybe some of you have attended this in the past, such as the Youth in Government Day, where teens in our county can job shadow for a day to learn about local careers in government. I'm sure your school district, or college has many other programs and opportunities. I encourage you to take the initiative to reach out, to connect, to look into these different options. If you take that advice, you might just have a new response the next time someone asks you that question about what do you want to be. And a response might truly align with our interests, skills, and goals in life. There's a lot of people here today to support you. We have people from universities and elected officials and a lot of folks here today. We have school administrators and teachers, counselors, community leaders, board members, all here to support you and this work. And if you're like my daughter, who's about to graduate, she's having a hard time getting there, right? She knows she needs to do something, but so this is a great opportunity to make all those connections and connect with people today, and then use those connections and use the initiative you're taking today to look into other programs. So we are grateful you're all here. We hope you enjoy your time today with the panel, and we thank you very much for being here today. Back to Councilmember Davis. Thank you for doing the hosting today.
Absolutely. That's what they tell me it's called. So thank you again, Dr. Brown, for all of that wonderful information. Oh, sorry about that. Right now, we have an outstanding panel of speakers, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce. As I introduce you, please come on up and take your seats. First, I'd like to introduce Nicole Potter, former state assemblywoman. Next up on deck, Gloria Navarez, commissioner at West Coast Conference. And last but not least, Jessica Rocha, legislative assistant for Assemblymember Villapudua Conference. And I'll be joining you ladies there. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm super excited to be looking out at all these lovely faces, knowing that we have 3 more lovely faces up here that is going to empower them this morning with your own journeys and experiences. As I put in my password so that I can get to those questions. Be patient with me. Hold on a second. Set this down. All right, thank you. I'm not sure who'd like to start first, but how about we start on the end? Is that okay? All right. When you began your career years ago, did you ever imagine that you would be a leader in a male-dominated profession?
I'd have to say no, because I didn't really even know how to envision this career path. And maybe I could take a second. I'm sure a lot of people don't know exactly what I do. I am the commissioner of the West Coast Conference, or referred to commonly as the WCC. And pro leagues are run by the NFL and the NBA. And college sports, Division I college sports is run by the NCAA, and under that there are 32 Division I leagues. So I run one of the leagues, and our league is located here on the West Coast, thus the name. And the schools in our league, from north to south, are Gonzaga, University of Portland. In the Bay Area, we have St. Mary's College. We have University of San Francisco, right here, University of the Pacific, and Santa Clara University. Over in the mountain region, we have Brigham Young, BYU. And in the south, we have Loyola Marymount, University of San Diego, and Pepperdine. And so I run the athletic league, we schedule league play, we broadcast the games, and schedule officials. So I had no idea growing up, and even early in my college years, that careers like this existed.
Wonderful, thank you. And next.
Guys hear me? Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. I first wanted to just start and give a little bit of introduction of myself, if I could, for a little bit. My name is Jessica Rocha, and I am the legislative assistant for Assemblymember Villapudua. As a legislative assistant, I conduct research, draft legislation, and advise the member on different policy areas and provide vote recommendations. It has been 3 years now since I started working for the California State Assembly, but that was not always the case. I actually started my work experience as a sales consultant at CarMax, but I knew that was not for me. So I decided to change career paths, and in 2018, I decided to pursue a career with the California State Legislature. It was not a smooth transition at first, but over the last 3 years, I have had the privilege to work and serve the people of California in different capacities, which has taught me a lot about the value of having a voice, not just as a woman, but also as a proud daughter of immigrants. Even though I was born and raised in Sacramento, I never forget where my roots came from. My parents were born and raised in town in Michoacan, Mexico, called Gomez Valles. As a proud daughter of immigrants, I have been taught the true meaning of being a hard worker and to give a voice to the voiceless. I want to acknowledge that working in the legislature has also inspired me to pursue other goals that include running for office, because I see how important it is that our voices and those of our communities be heard when making decisions that affect us directly. And to answer your first question, the answer is no. Even though I knew pursuing a career in politics is historically male-dominated, I was not going to let anyone or anything stop me from pursuing a career in politics. I want to make a difference in communities, and as a legislative assistant, I'm able to make a difference in people's lives by working on legislation that will improve California. For example, last year, I worked on a bill that would require state agencies to give preference to survivors of human trafficking, and another bill that will remove barriers to pursuing self-employment. And I'm very excited to say that these were the 2 first bills that were signed into law. And these are just some of the examples of things that I have been able to work on for the people of California, and I look forward to doing more.
And you also, when you began your career, did you imagine that you would be a leader in a male-dominated profession?
No, so I'm the type of person who has had, I'm older, and so I'm 51, right? So I've had many different jobs. So I'll start out with, I'm the type of person, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a ballerina. I wanted to be on stage, and then, I danced most of my life from 4 years old to 18. And then at church one Sunday, I heard the priest talk on this. And I remember looking up, and I never had seen and heard a microphone. And I remember it was during a Sunday after church, after Mass, and the families were there. And all of a sudden, I just raised my hand. And my parents were like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And I just raised my hand, and the priest said, oh, Nicole, you'd like to say something? And I just said, my name is Nicole Potter. And so it was like, then I was like, wow, hearing your voice and having that ability to ask a question, and I did not know that 40 years later that I'd be holding a mic and continuing talking to the dismay of some people. But so then ballerina, and then I thought about being a veterinarian, and then I watched LA Law. And I was like so engaged. You guys probably don't even know LA Law, but are young women lawyers, right? And I thought that would be something that would be very interesting, and I looked into going to law school. And so I was born and raised in Bakersfield, and my dad worked for the county, my mom was home raising us, and later worked at the Bakersfield Adult School. My brother now a 30-year teacher at Highland High School. And so education was always something that, my parents, were instilled in us that we were going to go to college, and even though that, my grandparents never had the opportunity for the work to follow the fields and so forth. So I was able to work hard in high school, got involved in various things, still did my dancing, and got into UC Berkeley. And my major was economics, because I had a wonderful high school teacher, and I thought about going to econ, right? So then I got involved in the Berkeley campus. I got involved with the Berkeley Youth Program. I started volunteering after school programs. Then I got so involved with organizing. So I came out of Berkeley, and this is literally, and I'm going to end with this because there's so much more I can talk about. You never ever know where you're going to end up. I've always been a yes person. I always like networking. If you don't, and I know it's kind of challenging because you can't really hug and shake hands, but if I could give you some advice today, do not leave this room without meeting 5 new people, thanking every adult who's here with you today, asking them what they do, asking for their card, because I come home from, graduate from Berkeley, economics degree, and I'm applying to legal internships. I can't get a job interview to save my life. The only interview I got was at Pizzeria Uno and in the Embarcadero Center. And I made sure I was the best hostess because I couldn't even make it to the waitress position. And I did that. The congressman at the time, Congressman Cal Tooley, who represented the southern portion of the valley, he was out campaigning. Ran into my mom, who he said, well, do you have your children? Mom said, yes, one's at Berkeley, one just graduated. What's she doing? She's working at Pizzeria Uno. He said, would she be interested in applying for a job for me in Washington, D.C.? I'm looking for a staff assistant. My staff assistant, who knew what that was, right, eloped. And I'm looking for someone from Bakersfield. So my mom called me that night after a shift at Pizzeria Uno and said, are you interested in interviewing with this congressman? I said, who's Congressman Dooley? He said, I don't know. Your chief of staff gave me a number. I said, Mom, how am I going to get to Visalia? She said, get on that Amtrak. So I got on Amtrak, came down, interviewed with his chief of staff, got back on Amtrak, got back to the Bay Area. 2 days later, I had a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C. Okay? Another story. So I worked for the congressman for 10 years. I was his district director in Hanford for 4 years. I did voter registration. I ran for the state assembly when I was 31 years old, and I had literally $100 in my pocket. I served, sorry, I'm like Darth Vader here, served 6 years in the state assembly, worked for Governor Schwarzenegger, was appointed to do economic development. I had a consulting company for a while. I taught civil liberties and civil rights at Cal State Bakersfield for a few years. Sorry to breathe, I'm such a talker. And so teaching was amazing. I love being an adjunct professor and teaching a room full of young, amazing students. And then I went back to, I led a campaign, a Measure J, which was a $500 million school bond for Bakersfield College and Porterfield College. That was amazing. Campaigns are another amazing way to meet people and find out really what you like and don't like. And then I worked in Sacramento for 5 years. And then my next chapter is I'm running for state senate in the district that I started out where I'm born and raised. So it's kind of like a full circle. But as you can see, I'm one that is all about saying yes, challenging yourself, writing those chapters, and never saying no, but making sure, ladies, that you have a savings and retirement and health care, because those are the fundamentals, especially as a single woman. All right. We're going to give it to the whole
So, as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? And just for time's sake, we have like 16 other questions, so we're going to keep them brief. Can you expand a little bit on what's been the most significant barrier for you?
I think in the field of college sports, there's this feeling or unwritten thought that you had to play or coach collegiate basketball or football. And that's just false. I happen to play college basketball, but this is an industry just like any other. We have web designers, we have social media people, we have television producers, we have creatives who make sizzle videos, we have governance people. And it's not just for ex-athletes and coaches. And you don't even really, you probably should have a basic understanding and appreciation of sport, but you don't need to be an expert in any one sport. I mean, we have a ton of people in our office who never played, never coached, kind of at the fan level, but they're really, really good at what they do, whether it's governance, compliance, web design, social media. So for me, that was the barrier to even being able to imagine these jobs, and then the kind of the stigma that it's changing year by year, but still kind of out there.
For me, searching for jobs in the Capitol, I remember going to mostly every single member's office to introduce myself and drop off my resume seeking an internship. And I didn't know anyone, and at times I did question myself if I were be able to obtain a job at the Capitol one day. But I knew I could, and I'm here to show you all that you too can work in the building if you're persistent, consistent, and motivated. And I took it upon myself to proactively to meet with people that eventually led me to a job in the Capitol.
I'll be brief. I will be brief. Barriers, I would definitely say there were some people who looked like Jessica when I was in high school working in the Capitol, whether in DC or Sacramento. And so for me, when I first started out working in politics or public service, even in the Central Valley when I was Congressman Dooley's district director, so many people when I would get to the meeting early thought I was there to serve coffee. And I was like, no, I'm the district director. And so a lot of those kind of cultural biases, especially as a younger woman in a field that is, when you think of public service and elected officials, you think of, and even when I was running for office, I said, wow, running for assembly, usually the people run for office in the Central Valley 20 years ago, it was the man, the wife, the two dogs, right? The Christmas, and what, for me, just being, having law school debt, single, I didn't necessarily see myself as someone in elected office. So the barriers for me was just not being able to see people who resembled me as a woman or as a woman of color, to be staffing or working in a legislative office.
Thank you so much. I'm going to deviate for just a little bit. Let's get the audience involved. How many of you see yourselves up here today? Raise your hand if you see yourself. If you see strong-willed, determined, driven, ambitious. One person? Where are my strong-willed, ambitious, determined, never going to stop young women out here? All 5 of you are probably going to be running the country. We're going to wake everybody up this morning. Do women in your profession have a hard time getting promoted? Let's start down here.
Athletics, whether it's pro or college, is a very, very competitive field. Women are still a minority. One of the things that drives me a little bit bananas is when I introduce myself, hi, I'm the commissioner of the West Coast Conference, sometimes folks will say, oh, you mean over the women's sports? No, all the sports. Yeah. So there is still this perception that the sports space is, predominant, not even a perception, it is dominantly male, and that whole stereotype, women have to work harder and better than the folks next to them, still a little bit true in my industry. But I will say there are a ton of women that are kicking butt and taking names in sports right now, so.
Right on.
I would say yes. I know colleagues that who are women and who are not easily promoted as men, even though they have the same work experience. And it's unfortunate, but I do believe that things got to change. And I encourage all the women to don't be afraid to ask for promotion when the time is appropriate.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes, definitely, but I think that what's changed is the ability to have, your core group of female supporters, that you can have these conversations, you can have a glass of wine if you're over 21.
21.
And you can talk to your girlfriends and talk about what's going on and how best to look at promotion and where you want to go, right? And the most important thing too, as women who are in a place that they can help make influence decisions about who's hired, is we need to continue. We can't just get to the corner office and not pull 5 people up. We can't just get there and not offer mentorship opportunities. We can't leave here without leaving our email and cell phones, so you guys call us and ask us questions. That's why it's incumbent upon us to be on stage. And that's why for me, for 30 years, anytime, whether it was a preschool, and I hear those kids, or it's Red Ribbon Week, which I can't even pronounce my hours, I show up. Because I know how important it was, what was missing in my life when I didn't see someone, again, who looked like me on stage. And believe me, after 20 more minutes of listening to us, every one of your hands is going to raise. Because you're like, if they can do it, I can do it, right? Because, good luck with you tripping off this stage too. So, yes, that's, we just all need to support each other. And I commend the assistant superintendent, who was I talking to earlier? Yes. What's your name again? Janine, all of the wonderful things, and Dr. Brown, that they're doing to support all of you here in Stockton. I was amazed. The teacher, the apprenticeship program, you were so fortunate to have that kind of support. So many people, generations before us, didn't. They were told, go work in the fields, go work on railroads, go do this. No other opportunities. You have it. Take advantage.
Thank you. How many of you young ladies came here with your tribe today? How many of you came with your support network today? Raise your hand if you came with your girlfriends. Okay. Okay, so I'm speaking that old school tribe. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And as has been mentioned up here, no one gets to where they are alone. No one obtains success alone. So keep in mind your network. Keep in mind your support system. You'll need to be supported, but you'll also need to be a support for others. So with that, we'll go to our next question, talking about education. Why do you think higher education is important?
Well, obviously I work in National Collegiate Athletic Association, so some familiarity with college is really important. But one of the primary missions of college athletics is the concept of student athlete, and that athletic participation can be a very valuable part of your education. So, a lot of folks think about sports as extracurricular or recreational. When, taken to the college level, it becomes really integrated into the development of you as a young adult or a soon-to-be professional and a member of society. So in my world, that's, a very strong piece of our mission and values.
Have any athletes here today? All right, wonderful.
For me, when I was much younger, my parents expressed to me how important education is, that knowledge is power, and it is something that no one can ever take away from you. The more education and skills you obtain, the more opportunities you will have.
I believe in higher education. I'm the first in the family to go to a UC, but I'm also a true believer in career technical education. For me, when you look at the statistics of how many of our students in the Central Valley are graduating, or and the numbers aren't there, and some of the opportunities that we need to instill in our families and our parents, that it's okay to get the students. I mean, I'm just Dr. Brown. I just can't wait to talk to Assemblymember and get more. I know we're doing that in Kerr County with Sonia Christian, Dr. Christian in Delano. It's grabbing the students early in middle school and high school and getting them ready and excited about a career, not just a job, a career. I want you to have the skill sets and a good job with benefits. to lift. It takes one person in a family to lift out of poverty, right? A good job can get you out of a rental unit, out of your car, into a home, in a neighborhood, and change the whole economic dynamic of your family. And again, during the pandemic, what did we learn? What skill sets were necessary? A lot of the trades, from construction, electricians, and plumbers, a lot of the folks who are unemployed and couldn't find work were in a lot of the hospitality, or a lot of the folks I know who had these Ivy League degrees, you know? So it's whatever you think that is what you want to be, in whatever career path, stick to it. As long, again, as it gives you that hope and that standard of living and good benefits. I keep saying benefits because it's very, very important. That's what we need. Higher education, yes, but not everyone wants to go to a four-year university. People want a career. They want to feel like they're being productive, right? Is that what you want to feel? You want to get up in the morning with a pip to your step. You don't want to know you're going to go do a job that you have to do. You're not going to last.
Thank you so much. Take it from me. You don't want to work. You want to do things that you enjoy with your life. And when you're doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. And I have 4 kids. None of them want to go to college, but they all need money. And so right now, what I'm trying to convey to them is that, you know, if you need things, you need work. That may not be college, but it could be trade school. And I know our Assemblymember pushes trade school very much. You might decide that you want to go into construction or electrical, or you might want to do HVAC or something like that. No one says you have to go to college, but you do need to be able to take care of yourself. And if you don't want to be broke and busted, you know, start thinking about life after high school. That can be college, that can be trade, that can be entrepreneurship, but position yourself so that you're not struggling tomorrow. And with that, how much of an impact do you believe college has had on your career?
You know, being able to go to college on an athletic scholarship was really special for me. Grew up in the California Bay Area, first generation college, and that really opened my eyes. I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, so for me that was very, very lucky. It eventually propelled me into my career path, but it definitely enabled me to appreciate the value of higher education. And then I went on to go to law school as well, largely because I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. And, you know, UC Berkeley, great, go Bears. Unless they're playing against WCC schools. And the value of a higher education and being able to move up the corporate ladder faster and get in sooner was really, really important as well.
For me, a lot. I graduated from Sacramento State with a BA in government and a minor in business. During my last year at Sac State, I was able to participate in one of their government department programs, which helped me obtain an internship at the state capitol. And having that connection from Sac State to the state capitol was a critical step for me. It was the start of my career in politics.
Are any of you thinking about going to college right now? How many juniors are in here? Where's the seniors? Seniors at home sleep. Well, all right. What programs have you participated in that helped you in your career, and why do you recommend women to participate in these programs?
So I volunteered for internships when I was actually in college. You can do the same in high school, trying to get units in order to gain yourself work experience and to meet those people in the industry that you eventually want to be in. I thought that was a really important opportunity because when I finally did hit the job market, I already had a small group of people in the industry who I got to know and got to see me working in the field. And so I had an edge when I actually went into the job market and tried to enter the field. So anytime, and I think you mentioned, anytime you can meet people in the field you want to be in, volunteer your time, get a coffee, get an informational Zoom interview, I think all of those are great opportunities to try to enhance your ability to navigate the marketplace.
For me, so I'm currently seeking programs to participate in that could still advance my, or to further myself in my career. I recently applied to the She Shares program, mentorship program, which pairs young women with professional Sacramento women at the top of their careers. Another program that I want to talk about that I will be applying this year is the Hispanas Organized for Political Equality Hope Leadership Program, which Nicole actually recommended me to apply, so I will be applying to that program for this year.
Okay, great. So when I was growing up, I was involved with, back in the day, it was the MESA program, Mathematics and Engineering Science, and then it changed. I remember, for me, I just wanted to be involved. I was in marching band. I liked to play the trumpet, and I liked doing the hustle on Tuesdays. We could do the hustle if we played an instrument, so that was kind of like a perk. I think that but the band program and orchestra, and I guess my point is, all of these different programs and groups that you're involved with, they challenge you personally. I didn't know many band people before I joined, and I got to meet some great people, and all through. And then joining Hope, I was in 1999, the founding class of the Spanish Organized for Political Equality, and I got to learn so many other skill sets about learning how to, with interview processes, being able to take a reporter's question, and if it's trying to catch me, how to kind of reframe that, right? How to be poised when someone has a camera stuck in your face, trying to get you to be, shoot, that's on Facebook Live, so it's probably gonna snip that. But you have to be aware, and even just the personal growth. What people don't talk a lot about in a lot of programs is the soft skills, ladies, about dress, being on time, interview, eye contact, those types of things that some of us didn't necessarily learn as much growing up, but it's very important when you're interviewing or you're speaking, that is good through some of these programs to learn, right?
Absolutely. And with that, who helped you get to where you are today? No one gets where they are alone. No one's successful by themselves.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I have a handful of male mentors and allies, especially in my industry when I was first starting. There weren't a lot of women in positions of power, and the ones that were all over the country. Not very many in my local institution, job, region, or whatever. So, there are folks that can serve as mentors. These are the ones that you go to and ask tough questions and you get guidance. And then in the workplace, I found there are folks that are allies. These are the ones that will open doors for you, makes introduction. You're not calling them with your insecurities, you're asking them to help lift you up and point you in the direction of a door or open a door for you. And so I think there are a series of athletic directors and conference commissioners that I got to know that served as very strong allies for me.
There's a handful of people that helped me get to where I am today, but I would want to really just say that my parents really helped me get to where I am today. They were always there to support me, and I'm just really blessed to have them. And I just want to give a quick shout out to them. Today's their 42nd wedding anniversary. They're watching from homes.
Yeah, I would say the same. I like, Gloria, how you separated from the personal to the work allies, because I realized too, some work allies don't want to know about your personal problems, right? Like, hey, I'm running late because my nephew's sick. They don't want to hear that. But your family and your friends are good and understanding. So for me, definitely my mom and dad, and my brother. We're the three. My mom, man, she's the one that will give, like, all her clothes, sell them so you can be able to do what you need to do. She's the most selfless, wonderful woman that is my, rock. And she's one of the reasons I'm able to even go home and do this journey. My father, he's the guy, he's always was wonderful to, these are the things you need to do. And my brother was my teacher. I knew he was going to teaching. 8 years old, he would spin the globe around and say, Nicole, pick a country, and I'll tell you all about the military uniform and the stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. So the family and friends, and then the work allies, my former boss, Steve, You know, he opened so many doors, has my back, and has allowed me to fly in this new chapter. A lot of the elected, a lot of the community leaders, and Sandra Mraz out in Alpha, who didn't quit when she was trying to get water wells for her community. So in your life, you never know. It could be the guy who you say hi to every time you gas up your car. It could be the person in the grocery store. I mean, it's just amazing who comes in and out of your lives, right? And sometimes it's some people you love that disappoint you and hurt you the most. But sometimes it's people you just meet that surprise you. But just let go of all the toxic people. That's one thing you'll learn as you get older. No time for toxic people, because they're just there to hurt and damage you, right? And you just gotta be, right? And surround myself with people who will lift me. And so that's always a hard challenge as you get older, ladies.
That's an outstanding advice. You're gonna have a lot of haters in your life, ladies. If you don't have them already, they are coming. Trust me. Find you a really good support system of people who believe in you, who give you advice, tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Love your parents, appreciate them while they're here, even though they get on your nerves. They love you more than anybody else in the world and will not steer you wrong, even though they might take away your privileges and your cell phone. What is the best advice someone has given you?
When I first became commissioner about 3.5 years ago, it was my first time leading an organization. And out of the 32 Division I commissioners, there are actually 10 female commissioners. And one of them said to me, you know, this is your first time through, you're gonna doubt yourself, you're gonna have questions, but trust your gut. Because your gut is what got you here. Your instincts are right. And especially when you start something new, you just doubt, you don't know, you're afraid to make a mistake. But I thought that it really, especially when the pandemic hit and we canceled all live sports, we were all faced with a lot of tough decisions. And as long as you stay true to your heart, your core mission and values, and your gut, that will really help see you through.
Excellent advice, Ms. Rocha.
Go after your dreams, because nothing is impossible. And I would say that no one can stop you but yourself.
Absolutely.
I've had a lot of advice, but recently I would say this. I remember, I think it was like 6 months ago, had a really tough day, and Senator Bradford, my good friend, had a really tough day in Sacramento, and we met, and we're sitting there, and sometimes we're like, you know, gosh, why are we doing this? Everyone's mad at us, and sometimes politics can get you down, and he said, you know what, Nicole, at the end of the day, we just want to be effective, right? Especially when you're in a position of leadership. Was I effective today? Am I delivering to the people that I am working for, right? Am I being effective with a full heart? And so I remember he said that, and I said, you know what, you're right. I feel like when I get up and I try to accomplish and do things, and I can point to things where I believe that I've been effective. And that's what I want to do. And so being effective in whatever you do, I think is the best advice I've had recently.
All excellent advice. I'm going to combine these two questions. What is your passion, and what motivates you and inspires you, and why?
Well, I know this is a bit obvious in my case, but my passion is sports. But really what motivates me is, and the reason I stayed in college and not explored careers in pro sports is what I love about college athletics is it's helping young people through sport. In my case, I actually got to go to college because I had a scholarship, and that was really important to me. But those experiences you have in college, whether it's 2 years, whether you take a couple years off, whether you come back, they're so formative. And that's when you really become who you are as an adult. And so for me, working in that space, being able to do it in sport, even on my worst day, I'm still watching sports, which is my passion. And it just gives me a platform to help young people. And to something you were saying earlier, it reminded me of a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Have you heard this one? There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And it's just, being in the job that I am, I have an opportunity to really influence, touch, mentor, and be a role model for a lot of young women choosing careers.
If you can add on that, is actually who inspires you and why?
Honestly, I'm gonna sidestep this question a bit and not give you a name, but it really is this next generation. Everything we're going through right now is unprecedented. We have a global pandemic, we have social justice on the horizon across our country, you know, unseen except for maybe the 60s, and you folks are going to school, growing up behind masks in a virtual environment, but yet you're still empowering, moving, changing. I get so inspired when I'm on campuses and I see all the things that our young people are up to. And so while some people may look at this time as a little bit of a gray cloud, I just think it's a great opportunity in this, I don't know, are you millennials? Is there a new name for you? But you guys are awesome and I can't wait for you to start, you know, running this country.
I think this is Gen X in the house. I have kids your age. I'm used to you guys. Give it up, you guys, because what she said is true. You're going through a lot. You're handling it like a boss. So give it up for you guys. And next, your passion and what motivates you and who inspires you and why.
One of my passions is helping others. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to work at the Capitol is because I knew I would be able to help others at a larger scale. Making a difference in people's lives, to me, is really priceless. And what motivates me is seeing the impact of the work that I do, making a difference in people's lives. Someone who I look up to in politics is Congresswoman Alexandra Cortez. I just admire how fearless she is in politics and how driven she is to make a true change in people's lives.
You. All right.
I'll be brief. People inspire me. You all inspire me personally. My nephews inspire me. And so just people. And I leave here and I'm going to drive to Bakersfield with the biggest smile on my face. So thank you.
I feel like we may have covered this a little bit, but you can expand on it as you wish. What has been your greatest challenge in your career, and how did you overcome it?
You know, and probably because it's top of mind, this global pandemic in the world of live events, it's not fun. I have a very clear recollection. Last March, I was at our basketball tournament in Las Vegas. Every day we were meeting, should we cancel, and we were the week before most other colleges. And so we actually were fortunate enough to finish, but that next day, the NBA shut down, the NCAA shut down, and there's no way I could have envisioned that 2 years later, even this weekend, all of our basketball games got canceled. But what I really have come to learn, especially in our league, we have a lot of small private schools on the West Coast. We're about putting the student athletes' health and safety first. While we want to play sports to the best that we can, we will, but we're not afraid to cancel. And you know what? When the pandemic throws us a curveball, we can reschedule. So it's really been probably the biggest challenge. I've never had this many events canceled. And it's a huge source of revenue for us, obviously. And so being able to overcome that and continue through it, and the way our league came together, we weren't always best friends during it, but we all worked together professionally, and we're still fighting through every day. So it's been a come together moment as well.
Thank you, Ian.
For me, I think my greatest challenge is self-doubt. I think we all have self-doubt at some points in our lives, and we're afraid of making mistakes, which can sometimes prevent us from advancing in our careers. But I learned that we are all human and it's okay to make mistakes, because I think that's how we really learn.
I agree fully, Jessica. I think that we learn more from our failures, and that's sometimes what I worry about some folks and young people when, you know, they really haven't experienced some of the, you know, necessarily some of the heartache, or I'm not saying a heartache, but, you know, the experiences of, you know, not getting a trophy for everything, everyone's included, you know, even a student at UC Berkeley, being in college on your own And I remember the Berkeley fires happened, the riots happened. I mean, we were sheltering in, different places when there was some folks came in with some guns to the Bancroft Hotel, and, traveling and being able to, and then publicly in my profession, anything that I've done in my past, anything that is just going to be on Facebook, on social media, and without the ability to defend, you have to pick and choose, right? Social media, someone could say, Nicole Potter said the F word during this conference with young kids, and then that goes viral. It's the controlling of that you just have to pick and choose your battles. So I guess at the end of the day, it's just picking and choosing your battles. Know that you're going to make mistakes, and know that you will learn. It's not what you fail, it's how you get up and respond and keep your head up and just move forward.
Outstanding. And just know, if you go into politics, you're going to be having a lot of battles, a lot of social media stuff to come back. Anybody in here want to be an elected official? Good. Good choice. All right. How do you cope with stress?
First of all, I want to say, please reconsider. We need all y'all to
No,
go.
it's a great field. I highly encourage getting involved with campaigns.
How do I deal with stress? Humor. We try to keep it light. We can't take ourselves too seriously. If you can at least, take a deep breath and put some perspective around things and find a laugh here and there, I think that's really important. And for me, also walking away. I think being on Zoom, being in front of your screen, it winds up your stress to it, and very slowly over time, and you don't realize it. So just getting out, going for a bike ride, going for a run, and just moving something, getting out of the house.
For me, it's exercising. I try to work out at least 3 times a day to relieve stress. I think it's really fun for me, and I recently have taken boxing, which is really fun.
Go on.
I think I've worked out 3 times in the last year. So obviously. So something's changed for me personally, ladies. I've made my way through life. I mean, again, it's good to be married and have relationships, but without being married and having children, just because it just hasn't worked out, right? And so I have a puppy. Well, actually, she's 2, Bailey, a Cavalier Spaniel. And let me tell you that, having another life you're responsible for, although I can leave her at home and I could leave a baby at home. But, the love, she stays with grandma a lot now, but the love, the unconditional love, going on walks, she's getting outdoors more, hanging out with her. She loves Raiders. She has a little Raider jersey. And she does love to be in the car. She's a people watcher. Oh, go Raiders. Oh, Sunday night, beat the Chargers. And so my Bailey has changed my life because my friends say I don't have that sensitivity part sometimes, family, kids. But I love my kids, and Bailey's changed my life.
Wonderful. I love each of those answers. How many of you are willing to unplug sometimes when it gets to be too much? Does anybody put down the cell phone or the devices? I think that's really important to break away. And I also love the answer about exercise. I never exercise 3 times a week. I never do, but I really respect people that do. How many of you take time to exercise and take care of yourself? Good to see. Good. And I also love the idea about having puppies. Anybody have pets, cats? Yay! Good. Those are good stress relievers. How did you reach your level of success given a sector's gender gap, especially among leadership?
In any corporate job, and I would classify sports in that corporate sector, I think at baseline, being good at what you do. And I know it sounds really easy, but sometimes you're going to get tasks and duties that aren't that fun. They aren't that glorious, and you might feel like, oh, this is a waste of my time. In my world, it sounded like working with officials. Very thankless. Nobody loves the officials. Nobody calls and said, hey, you worked a great game, referee. So throwing myself into that, revamping the program, learning it, getting it right, and despite it being probably one of the worst parts of working in college sports, really helped me overcome that, become an industry leader in that, and really led into some of the promotions along the way, because it opened doors to serving on committees about basketball. It opened to being national speaking engagements and being a template for others to use and meeting other leaders. So no matter the task, I would just say, master it and then move on.
Well, for me, I strive to do better every day, and I know one day I will be in a similar position as these amazing women here with me on stage. If I, continue to work hard and never give up, and be fearless when you are in a room full of men. Never be intimidated, and show them who you are and what you are capable of.
Well, I love what you said. So ladies, it's very simple. Be the first one in and the last one out. And what I mean by that, I had different bosses, and I made sure that I was the first one in. Congressman Dooley was a farmer on the East Coast. He showed up in the office at 6. So I had to take the BART, get his Union Station, walk to the Capitol, make sure I was beat him. Now, working for a farmer, woo, that was a tough call, but you know what? And I was the last one, whether at campaign offices, even the new job I'm doing. You gotta be able to do different things. If the coffee pot is overboiling, change it. Just because it's not your job, if the bathroom's clogged, fix it. Don't be afraid, because the person who's watching you, the little bosses, they're like, ooh, I'm gonna go pick up Natalie. She's a hard worker, she's a hustler. Let's bring her in. For me too, that's what I've done most of my life. I see hustlers out there. You don't need a fancy degree. You don't need your parents to call me for recommendation. If I see a hustler, someone who has heart and is the first one, the last one, doesn't complain, of course, complain if your working conditions are bad, but let's go, get in the car, let's go. And pretty soon, that's what worked for me. I was just, I was a staff assistant, ledge correspondent, press secretary, law school, ran for office, because I was the first one in and the last one out.
Absolutely, I think we can all agree, hard work is the bottom line here. Work harder, make better, smarter and harder. How would you say you differentiate yourself?
When I first got the job as a commissioner, it was I always known I'm a woman of color and one of the few Latinas in college sports. But when I became the commissioner of the West Coast Conference, I became the first person of Latin American descent, male or female, as a Division I commissioner.
I'll give it up for that.
But it was an interesting moment, because I grew up in the California Bay Area, and while that was my identity, it was really not as much of a thing until I sat in the chair as a position of leadership. And that's when the press release wasn't about Gloria Navarez being a commissioner. The header of the press release was first Latino commissioner. And that's when I realized what I'm bringing to the table, in addition to being an administrator, but also representing women of color, really late in my career became a point of distinction for me.
For me, I stay true to who I am. I'm very thankful of the values that my parents have instilled in me. I'm a person of integrity, respect, I'm honest, I'm kind, I'm a hard worker, and they taught me that nothing in this world is handed to you, and if you want something, you really have to go for it. And I know that we all have setbacks in life, and we all go through difficult personal times, but eventually we'll get through it. And my parents taught me to be resilient, and they made me the woman who I am today.
Wonderful. You say this about my name, I will outwork anyone. And that's pretty much it, right? If you have to be cleaning all these tables with Windex, or that's actually bad, but I will clean all of those tables and do a good job and be there and show up and help people, and I'm a team player. That's definitely when you just want to distinguish yourself. For me, it's not, I'm not trying to do this to impress anyone. That's how I was raised, right? That's what my grandma's. I'm in honor of my grandmothers who didn't have the opportunities to do what I'm doing. And so in honor of my family, I'm going to do 150%. I want to pay respect, and I want to be respectful. But I think just trying to outwork, not outwork to show off, just out-hustle, outwork, just be present and do the job, do the right thing. I think that's what it is too.
Excellent, doing the right thing. Why should women pursue a career in your field?
College athletics represents probably one of the biggest diverse scopes of an industry, because across our colleges we have pretty much every walk of life. And we in college athletic administration can't appropriately represent those interests unless we're diversified in background, view, opinion, geography, age at the top. So I can't stress enough. What I do is, except during a pandemic, is pretty darn fun. You get a lot of access and VIP credentials and get to go to the Final Four and meet, famous folks. But you're also impacting young people at a wonderful stage in their career. So I'm always looking to hire women, to hire hustlers, in the work hard sense, not the shady sense. So, I mean, these are really fun jobs. We talk all these questions about the challenges, but there is a lot of upside to working in sports and college sports. So I would encourage you to consider it, definitely.
Anybody looking to work in sports? Any ladies? Coaches? Administration? All right.
I work for the Raiders. That's sport.
There's your contact right there. And next.
Well, it has been 100 years since women got the right to vote, and even though women make up more than half the population, we still account for less than 1/3 of all elected officials at local, state, and national levels combined. And I think we need to change this. We need more women to run for office, and I encourage anyone who wants to make a change in their community and people's lives to run for office.
Excellent.
And I'll be brief. When you think of elected office, that's not just the job in this public service arena. When I was teaching my students at Cal State Bakersfield, I said, look, what's called the third house, right? It's the executive, you have the legislative branch, but there's consultants, there's social media, there's pollsters, there's folks who, I'm hiring a team that looks at the mail, that looks at the data, that thinks about, the branding. I mean, it's a whole other type of careers, diverse, that support either an initiative or a campaign, like a school bond. Who's doing that? Who's developing the messaging? You all, are in the social media, you've grown up with talking points, being able to move things fast and look at voters and the micro-targeting. We know what you buy, where you buy it, how often you buy it. When Facebook or Google, when you search for shoes, and then you get every ad on shoes, right? There's people collecting all that data. Sometimes I have to be careful what I search for, right? You don't want to be bombarded. But there's so many other jobs that support the organization of what happens in the Capitol, the elected officials, their staff, and the campaigns. Look at it, they're great jobs, they're great careers, we need more women.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to touch on this too. Everything these ladies said is true. And I know you guys are kind of young, but there's an old song. It's by James Brown. It says, "This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman's touch." And whether it's in sports or in politics, that remains true. I never once in my life thought I'd grow up to be an elected official. But you are the power. You're the power in your voice as a voter. You're the power in your voice if you decide to take office. You're the power within your community when you decide to become an advocate. And so it's extremely important that if you want to be heard, you become the voice, you become the advocate. And being an elected official, it can be tough. But you have to be tougher. You have to be tougher. You have to show up early, stay later, and rally the masses. And if there's one thing that I know about this particular generation, because I've done 4 of you guys, you know how to rally the masses through social media. You know how to rally the masses by getting out there and making sure people hear you and see you. And I respect you so much for that. So please do consider getting out there and becoming elected officials and politicians and advocates and consultants. would you give to the next generation of female leaders? They're all here.
Absolutely, and I think we've talked about a ton of things, but be true to yourselves. Right? You know who you are inside, and no job, no career is worth not being true to who you are as an individual. If you find yourself in a job where you don't feel fulfilled or true to yourself, there's another job out there. And I know it's hard to see sometimes past the one you have, but almost that same advice I got, trust your gut.
Absolutely.
I would say be assertive, be fearless. If you work hard and are persistent, you will achieve everything you dreamed of. More importantly, I would say believe in yourself.
I just say, ladies, just know that you are enough. You are enough.
How many of you understand that you are enough? How many of you are fearless? Raise your hand if you're fearless. How many of you realize that you're probably inspiring someone and you don't even know it every day just by getting up, doing what you do, and owning who you are and being comfortable in your own skin and doing what you do? How many of you realize that? You are enough, and you're helping some other young lady understand that she's enough as well. So we're going to go ahead. I believe the next segment is Q&A, which means we're going to take questions from the floor. And yes, we'll start out here, and then we'll
Ladies, ask questions. Come on, this is your time.
This is your time. I see a question over here to my right. Right here? All right, let's start here, and then we'll go to you. Thank you.
All right, so you can stand up.
Be fearless. Stand up. Say your name. Ask your question. You got this.
Okay, so my name's America. I'm a senior at Edison High School. So this question is about sports, actually. So how do you feel that mostly men's sports are the ones that get a lot of advertisements and women don't? Because a lot of people do say that it's all about equality and men make more than women, but honestly, men have more advertisement than women, so how do you feel about that?
You want me to take this one? So, and this is why it's important that all of you think about getting into sport, even if you're not athletes, because who is controlling the media? Male dominated. They are feeding into what we learn and see and get exposed to based on their preferences. And so that's why there are more men's sports on TV. Women's sports has a fan base. It's not a charitable cause. It is a marketable product. But we haven't yet been able to get the television industries, the media buyers to realize that. Look what's happening with the NCAA Women's Final Four, right? They just did an analysis on the television value, and it is undervalued severely because it's been run by, it's been thought about through the filter of a male-dominated, and I would say over 60 male-dominated press and media and sponsorship buys. So those of us who value women's exposure, whether you're an athlete or not, or an athletics fan or not, need to be in the chairs making these decisions about where I'm going to buy advertising, what I'm going to put on my television channel, and like myself, let's throw ourselves into selling sponsorships to our championships and treating the women's teams and programs equitable to the men. So thank you for that. I'm going to start.
I just want to ask, how far did you all go in your education before you got?
Wait a minute, what's your name? Where do you go to school?
My name is Gabby. I go to the Dream Academy. How far did you guys go in your education before you got where you are today?
Berkeley undergrad and then a law degree.
For me, I got my BA in Sac State.
I got my undergraduate at University of Massachusetts, and then I went to law school at Cal. But there's also quite a few sport management programs that are the more traditional path in this field I work in.
And I only have an AA and I still go to Delta College. So.
I'm Emily, and I'm an adjunct professor at Delta. I did have a quick question. So it's great to tell everyone to work really hard, and that was what my generation got. So we did the unpaid internships, we did 1,000 things before we got to college. But what happens when the extra mile is no longer extra, when it's just standard? Do you keep telling them to keep working, outwork the next person? And if that happens, how do they form an identity or interest outside their career?
So the specific is if it's good to outwork and try to do that, but what happens when it just leads to a static? You're kind of stuck?
There's 24 hours in a day. If we keep working ourselves, because that's
Right.
the problem. If I keep working and working, when do I just have an identity outside of work? But if I can outwork everyone, it'll never happen.
Well, that's why it's important, I think, what we talked about here is to love what we're aiming for, right? So when I was working for, the Bakersfield, Greater Bakersfield Legal Assistance, right? It helped people foster kids with their guardians. It helped with the tenant-landlord issues. You know, if you're working those hours and you're able to be able to afford to, not everyone can do a free internship, I get that, because they're responsible for making bills, but you just have to figure out how you can spend, if you're going to spend those hours working, where you can spend it, where you're interested in doing, while staying in school or going to a trade school, but also leaning on any support system. There's a lot of opportunities. When people come and students email me for help, it's like, all right, how can we help you so you're not just scheduling and overscheduling? There's ways to reach out to people to be able to say, look, I did that. And then I got burned out, I stopped eating, I lost my gallbladder, believe me, I've been there. I've been there with no health insurance, praying I wouldn't be hit by a bus. None of us here started out with like a silver spoon, right? We all are humble, know what it's like to not have money, to not have insurance, to hustle, but that in-gut hustle and the ability to ask for help. Asking for help, being vulnerable, we're here to help you. So you should never feel, yes, the hustle, and sometimes you're down, but there are people and staff and superintendents here to help those who feel like they're just like in this wheel, right? This wheel.
Add that I think this generation, working smarter is a way of working harder. If you can find a better way, make something more efficient, use technology to change old systems, that's what I'm seeing from the young people in our office. And that is distinguishing themselves. That it might not be an extra 4 or 5 hours at the end of the day. It might be making a system better to save everybody time.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Genesis Dominguez, a junior at Edison High School. So, with all these there's these classes being made right now, like Mexican American history and hopefully Black and African American studies, art and ethnic studies. I've taken myself Mexican American history, and I just wanted you guys to know what are your guys' opinions on these classes, and if you think, why you think that, and if they're beneficial to students.
Let me make sure I understand the question. You're saying that the ethnic studies classes, Mexican American history, Black American history, whether or not these are important, what they think about these things?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Really motivated right there.
Well, I'm always motivated, but no, I'm talking too much. Please go ahead, sorry.
I'll answer. I think those educational tracks are really, really important. And there are jobs for folks majoring in ethnic studies or women's studies in college athletics, because we administer to student athletes of all different backgrounds. And right now there's actually been a new position developed across the entire NCAA. It's called the Athletics Diversity ADID position. So every athletic department has to have someone who is trained in these issues, who can develop these programs and bring diversity programming into college athletic departments. So it's a cutting edge field, and I think there's only going to grow in opportunity.
I scored 100% when I was at UC Berkeley. Dr. Alex Zaragoza, Chicano Studies 101, just totally, for me, you know, I went to high school and was, you know, world history and American history, and was never exposed to different histories. I took Middle Eastern history, I took Chicano Studies, and when I was able to go to Mexico City, using some of the things that I learned, and I read a lot of more books and so forth. In fact, and I'll end with this, is that, you know, while a junior at UC Berkeley, a lot of us, about 100 of us, felt it so important to acquire ethnic studies and to our professors and for every student taking a class. 100 of us did a sit-in and we were all arrested. And the charges were dropped, Facebook, charges were dropped. Because we protested, and right now you'll see at UC Berkeley, the Cesar Chavez Study Center, that was based on our protests in the 90s. The ethnic studies, the American Teachers Requirement, for those. Did that. We were able to say we got put on. You believe in something, you got to fight for it. You got to be able to say, I'm good with this. So absolutely, that's why I got all excited, because it's 20 years later we're talking about this. We're protesting it, and the people before us were protesting it, this, you know, before. So keep it up, keep protesting, keep fighting for those rights and education. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniela, I'm from Edison High School, I'm a sophomore. I have a question, it's a little deep, but I wanted to know if any of you guys have experienced sexual harassment in your field before,
We're old enough for some wine, but yes, of course, yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm willing to share my experience. I've actually talked about it publicly in the media, so one of my first jobs at a school that shall remain nameless, I went to a Christmas function. I actually had my boyfriend with me, and we, you know, have a photographer rolls around and takes pictures of everybody in the crowd. There was a senior associate next to me on one side, my boyfriend on the other, and as they took the picture, he reached around and grabbed my butt. Right? What do? I froze. I didn't even tell my boyfriend. I didn't know what to do about it. Next day, thought it through, consulted with, you know, my inner circle of friends and family. And I don't know that this is the right thing that I would advise, but the next day I called that guy in my office with my voice shaking, with insecurity dripping off of me, almost tears in my eyes. I bring him into my itty-bitty little office because I'm a real low-level employee at this time, and I said, look, this is what happened. You inappropriately touched me at the office Christmas party. And I'm not gonna report this, I'm not gonna say anything, but that should never happen again. I am an employee here, I should deserve to be treated respectfully, and after this I don't want to talk about it. Did I luck out? Yeah, he said all the right things. He immediately apologized, agreed that I shouldn't be treated that way, and I was able to walk the halls and not have to avoid him going forward. Could that have gone the other way? Probably, but you know, looking back, I'm glad I did it, but I'm also like, what the heck, how did I do that? Because it was not smooth, it was not professional, and it was not in the voice and demeanor and confidence I have today. So that's my story.
Yeah, not to close the question, but I think for a lot of us, when we talk about these careers and these career paths, you know, that yes, you know, it would take a lot. Receptions was kind of something that I didn't necessarily know where to go or who to talk to. I was kind of just, you know, when you're campaigning and you're by yourself, or when you're, you know, at a dinner and it's late, right? But now what I'm so proud of, and I was actually talking to some some lobbyists last night, was that for at least the Capitol staff now, there is an HR system in place where if you feel that you need questions or you've been harassed or your job is based on, favors to your boss, there's now places and protections for you, and there's numbers. When I was growing up, I remember my friends and I were like, what do we do? What do we say? We didn't even have the guts to, I couldn't even imagine calling them into my office or just talking to them like you were being inappropriate, because shock is the first thing you feel. I will definitely say this. Now as I've aged and gotten older, it's still shocking that it still sort of happens, but I'm able to take care of it a lot quicker. And people know, like, you cannot do that. But I definitely also talk to young women, if you ever feel, I'm like, here's my number, here's it, I'm like a mama bear. But also look at those opportunities to talk to your counselor, talk to your teachers, talk to someone who's gonna, first of all, people are now believing you. When we were growing up too, a lot of it was like, well, are you sure he did that? Are you sure that's what happened? And then you doubt yourself, right? You're like, well, maybe I did take it the wrong way. But it's your support system and your guide. And we can talk about this offline if there's more questions. But just know, unfortunately, in our lives, as women putting ourselves out there, that has happened, I would say, to a majority of women, and definitely the friends who I've grown up with in this business. It's happened to all of them.
For me, I haven't experienced sexual harassment, but I do know a lot of colleagues that have experienced, and I can only imagine what they have gone through. And I just, where I work at the Capitol, they do have a place where you can go if I could not imagine what, women, just to have that experience, I can only imagine what they will go through.
And thank you for sharing. And that's an excellent question, young lady. I've not personally experienced sexual harassment, but I'm not afraid to punch somebody in the throat. So, is to carry yourself with confidence, and if anybody steps to you out of pocket like that, first check them immediately, and then go and report them. Your space, no one has the right to invade your space, and so, male, female, you take care of that immediately. And, for all women, part of your power is letting people know exactly where you stand in the moment, like she did. She was a little scared, but she handled her business. She let them know what you did wasn't okay. And don't be afraid to just let somebody know where you stand on that. Keep your hands to yourself, So thank you for sharing that. And if you feel uncomfortable, reach out to somebody. There's a lot of women that will stand behind you, men too, if something happens like that. Any more questions?
Hello, my name is Ashna Singh and I'm a senior at Middle College High School. Were your parents or anyone in your circle unsupportive of you guys choosing this career because you didn't have any representation and it was an insecure job for you guys as women?
Well, real briefly, I'm looking, this chapter of my life, a very secure job with good benefits, expenses, blah, 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 to basically move back home and have no money. But what I did was, always have your savings, right? And always be able to have a way, if your job, look, nothing's for granted. You can't take anything for granted. In the business world, any job, you're mostly at-will employee. So what happens if you are fired? Do you have that safety net to be able to go? So for me to answer your question, the beauty about my mom and dad has been like, go, we got you. Just fly, we got you, we'll figure it out. So I get brown bag lunches from my mom. I get a turkey sandwich, some peanut butter, and I get an apple, and I go to my meetings because it is, but I love it, right? So I always am able to be, and I don't own a home, I've always kind of just been move around. I go where the work is, and that's what's cool. The ability to be able to just go, I have a passport. If someone called me and said, I need you in Europe right now, bye. Bye! I'll go there for a year. I got my passport, my Max card, everything ready, right? So I can go anywhere I need to go. And there's empowerment in that, right? So, fortunately in my life, my parents have said, oh, run, do it, we got you. But not a lot of people have that, but I've been blessed.
Yeah, I think your question was, have there people that have been unsupported? And I'll tell you, my grandparents and we were very close to family growing up, they did not understand young girls playing sports, or even playing sports as jeopardizing your ability to have a job. Say you got hurt and weren't able to stand for long hours or bend over. And so that was really hard for them to understand, me even just playing, let alone working in the field. And then I think your question brings to mind just women in corporate positions. And in a male-dominated field, there are people that just aren't supportive because they feel we don't belong there. And so, again, call to action, ladies. Think about working in sports.
Okay. Overall, my parents have been really supportive. There was only one time that my mom was unsupportive. I wanted to be a police officer, and I made it through the process with OED. I was born and raised in Oakland, and so she was just concerned more or less, not about me being in law enforcement, but about me being in law enforcement in Oakland. So I joined the military instead. And, but overall, young lady, if you want to do something and you find that you don't have the support, you know, as far as I know, you only live once, and it's your journey. And all 4 of my kids, I would love for them to be doctors and lawyers and, bioscientists, but, that's not what they want. And so ultimately, you have to decide what's best for your life. And you can be respectful in declining, your parents and what they want you to do, but you have to be comfortable in your own journey, and, you just do what you'd like to do.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Hinton, and I'm an administrative assistant with GVCC. My question is, for those who are not college bound or don't have the fancy degree, what kind of opportunities have you guys each experienced in your profession? Or what's available out there without the education to back it up?
So in our field, you think about sports, it's everything from selling the television rights and the marketing sponsorship, probably high education, high training, to event management, right? We're hosting games every night. We are running venues. We are everything you've ever seen when you go into an arena. There's concession stands. There's all the jobs it takes to turn on the lights and hold the cameras and be part of a television production. At the highest level, there is that education and training, but there's a whole spectrum, just like any business, that you can get into with trade certifications or just experience.
Yeah, the interesting thing about capital and political work, you don't need a degree. You don't need a college degree. If you're on a campaign and you show hustle, and you're out there and you're working, my political director went a few years in college. One of my best friends is in the pro tem's office, didn't go to college. I mean, any job for me, and when I'm looking at hiring, I don't look at college degrees. I don't look at the resume. I look, what have you done in the community? How have you served? Where are you from? Oh, I like that. And so, to be honest, in public service, leading a community or not-for-profit. Now, what that degree provides you is for you personally to be able to feel like if it doesn't work out, you can do other things. But the last thing I want to do, when I was a staff assistant in Washington, D.C., and I just had my 4 years at Berkeley, I remember people would come in with all these fancy degrees for my job just to get in. But I'm a true believer it's about the person. But again, politics, elected, campaigns, working, you just need a high school degree. It's all about your that's why networking is so important in this business. Because it's networking that gets you in the door. You do 5 or 6 years in the Capitol, you're out making $300,000 and $400,000 a year because you got a Rolodex, which you guys don't use that term anymore. You got some cards, you got clients, you have clients. That's all you need. And who do you know in the state assembly and the state senate? That's your currency. Your reputation, your work ethic, that's your currency. It pays way more than your college degree in Sacramento.
I do think having a higher education is important, but I also think that networking, what Nicole was mentioning, is extremely important. Knowing people that could assist you wherever you want to, once you figure out a career that you want, having those connections, I think is just extremely important.
And if I can restate your question, I think you're asking for those of you who aren't necessarily looking for a higher degree, what kind of opportunities are out there? Many, and I think they've all explained that very well, but what I can tell you is that it took me 12 years to get an AA. I was raising my kids, I was a young mom, and what I found was that I didn't mind working for other people, but it was just kind of not very practical being a young mom. And although I do believe higher education is important, if that's the role you'd like to, road you'd like to take, I'm a serial entrepreneur. For me, flexibility and freedom with my time and space is important. And so what I did was I pursued my passions. I loved little kids and I wanted to stay home, so I opened a preschool and did daycare while I'm raising my kids. And then, when my kids got, old enough and it was time for me to do other things, my husband and I, we opened a security company because, I still love law enforcement. And, you really don't get to arrest people with that business, but I have the flexibility and freedom with my time. So what I would encourage you to do is look at what you're passionate about, find the things that interest business or start a business with that. And you don't need a college degree to start business. Although I'm still in college, I do that for my personal growth, my personal development, and some other things. And I'm a lifelong learner, and so I encourage you to just find your passion and pursue entrepreneurship or business. Consider those things. And there was a question.
Hi, my name is Alex McCarthy. I am a teacher here at Venture. And I'm just wondering what advice you have for young men for how they can best be allies for their female peers.
I actually got asked that same thing by a young man on a panel like this, and the first thing that came to my mind is, step up, step in. If there's a diversity committee to be served on, it doesn't always have to be me. It doesn't have to be the woman of color serving on that committee. I, in my role, have a certain amount of political capital that I could use to get things done. And it would be great if I could have others spending political capital in the areas of promoting diversity and inclusion. And so I think for those of us who are in those chairs, when we think about reaching out, starting programs, building things, that we should probably include advocates, allies, men, white men in the room, because then we have more people willing to help out. So I think, in short, get involved.
I think we have time for maybe one more question before we get into closing remarks. And okay.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Christina Fugazi. I'm an assistant principal at Edison High School. I'm here with one of our counselors, Stephanie Sam, and our board president for Stockton Unified, Cecilia Mendez. So, representing women. We brought 25 students today. And one of the reasons we did is because there's so much girl drama on our campus. And these young ladies, we want them to come back and be leaders. Because some of them, they can tell you they made mistakes, yes? And they're trying to turn it around. But how can you have some examples of how they can support one another in a positive manner? Because you talk about those haters, yeah, it's everywhere in that social media. Ooh, she was looking at my Instagram. And, she needs to get off of that. And it's pervasive, and COVID has not helped. So what are some examples of how they can go back on their campuses and be a positive change agent and be doing that, what we've been talking about, that call to action of supporting one another?
Yeah, no, I could not even imagine being in high school or middle school growing up now with all of this stuff. I see my nephews, and it's just the things that people say and the bullying. So you're asking for specific examples. I can challenge some of your young students here to challenge themselves to just put the phone down, right? Like, we survived high school and middle school without the phone, and if it's your core people who can do this, and then when I talk to people who feel like, oh, my life, I'm sad or I'm depressed, for sure there's issues, but when I get in a rut and when I'm feeling bad, it's being of service. So then you take that, your students, and you're like, what can we do together to change the lives of other people? Can we go and read to some of the kids at the homeless shelter? Can we go and do something? Can we crochet? I crochet is another way I deal with things, and I give the hats to homeless on the street, to people in need. I think about, when you think about other people, then when you read a text about, oh, you were talking to some girlfriend's boyfriend, or you saw your boyfriend talking to someone, it means like nothing. Or that you come from poverty, or your parents do this, or your cousin's in prison. Those things, who's saying that? They don't love themselves. They have their own issues. But it's hard when you're in high school to be that mature and be like, it's their problem, not mine. You should take it to heart, believe me. And so I would say specifically is to your students to work on something together that could be good and be of service. Not only does it help you personally, but it distracts from all that noise. All that noise. I'm going to be telling myself the same advice this next year. I gotta not look at the noise, not respond to those hateful texts of, everything that's already starting to be on social media, just even about me. Just take a walk, do something else, put down the phone, right? And just be of service. That's as specific without being in high school right now or knowing, right?
Anyone else have a remark? No? Okay, I'll give a final remark. I have 2 daughters and too many nieces to count. What I'll say is that, first of all, you have to be confident in yourself, and if you're confident, you're too busy living in your own positive energy. And so if everyone's like that, then there shouldn't be any drama. But just in case there is, know how to walk away. Know how to walk away. If you extend an olive branch and for some reason it's not well received, just understand that that person isn't ready for that, and be ready to walk away and move on with your life.
And high school passes, ladies.
Oh my God,
It
yes.
gets better.
It does.
It gets better. High school passes. It's
Thank
not
God.
it doesn't define you.
Yeah, it doesn't. You won't even remember a lot of stuff that happens in high school later on. So with that, please give it up for our panelists. There is some type of lunch for pickup available over there. You can take that to go on your way out. I'll excuse the panel and give closing remarks. Thank you again for all for coming.